This is D.L. Hudson. Welcome to Church and Culture. This show is devoted to exploring the interaction between our faith and our culture. Each week, I will talk with expert guests on topics ranging from literature, art, and music to politics, liturgy, spirituality, and education. Thank you for joining us. I have a very special guest today talking to us from Italy. His name is Aurelio Porfiri, and he's written a very important book, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But let me tell you about Aurelio. He is an Italian composer, conductor, educator, and writer. He is a renowned expert in sacred music and a scholar also on China and Catholic traditionalism, among other things. He is co-author with Bishop Athanasius Schneider of the bestseller The Catholic Mass, which has already been translated into several languages. He is a major contributor to major Catholic and conservative blogs in Italy, France, and the United States. Inside the Vatican included him in top most influential people in 2021. He is the author of many books in addition to The Catholic Mass. For example, The Right Hand of the Lord is Exalted, a history of Catholic traditionalism from Vatican II to Tradizione Codores, both from Sophia Press. Today, we are going to talk about a very, very important book. This may be, at least it's one of the most important books I've ever discussed on church and culture in the 10 years of the show. It's entitled, When the Harps Went Still, The Tragic Decline of Catholic Sacred Music, which he co-authored with Archbishop Schneider and Professor Guido Milanese. Aurelio Porfiri, welcome to Church and Culture.
Thank you for having me.
Well, your book, I think, should start a movement, not only in the United States, but worldwide, to restore Catholic sacred music. For example, in your opening preface, you say, the crisis of sacred music is not merely a matter of musical aesthetics, but sheds lights on fundamental aspects of the current crisis of the West, in particular the crisis of the Catholic Church. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about what you have in mind when you say that?
Yes, because I think that some people may think that sacred music is not concerning for them. It's only something that concerns musicians like me or people that are very careful about liturgical things. But indeed, we have to remember that sacred music is the matrix of Western music, and Western music is also one of the pillars of Western civilization. So I think that we have to remember that music is not only some, thing for entertainment. I think that the people think that music is only for entertainment. It is not an important part of our life. But indeed it is. It's very important. And it's also very important in the liturgy, because bad music make the liturgy less relevant also for the people that participate. So we should be really careful, and also we don't have to forget that if music is not appropriate, does not help people to elevate their soul, but maybe help them to do the opposite, make their spiritual life more mediocre and more arid. And this is something very important. We know that music and liturgy stay together. They are together, and they can also fall together as is in. This is our situation now.
You know, what you say about the history of Western music going from the monophony of chant to the organum, early polyphony in the Renaissance, to homophony in the Baroque period and the classical and romantic and modern, that the development of sacred music was right at the heart of all musical development in the West, right?
Yes. Gregorian chant is the repertoire from whom develop polyphony, and then develop all that secular aspect of music, and also the instrumental music, the symphony, sonatas, all develop from the religious metrics. So yes. I think that is very important.
You know, we have a lot to talk about. This is such a rich book. As I said in my introduction, it needs to start a movement to reclaim Catholic sacred music. And there are lots and lots of people who care about it. But as you say, the clergy normally receive no musical education whatsoever, not even artistic education. Why is that? Was there ever a time when clergy learned sacred music?
Of course. I had the occasion in the past, for example, to talk with a lot of old clergymen or old prelates, and they all remember, even if they were themselves maybe a little progressive, but they remember the time they were studying, and they remember that they were used to sing in polyphony with the seminary choir. They were, and also I can also tell you this story that I heard from my teacher. So I am a student of Cardinal Domenico Bartolucci, that was one of the master of the conductor of the Sistine Chapel Choir for 40 years.
Wow.
So he was the conductor under Pius XII until he remained until John Paul II. So it was a very long time. And then Benedict XVI made him a cardinal for as a reward for his teaching. And so when I talk with him about his youth, he always remembered the time that he composed wonderful pieces for his choir in the seminary where he was studying. And these pieces that are published so we can see them are kind of challenging pieces, so we can imagine the level that these priests have to attain to perform those kind of compositions. But they sing also Renaissance polyphony, or of course Gregorian chant. So they have a kind of taste for this kind of music. They know what was the standard that you have to not go under. So they got an education, and now I don't know what happened in this regard in the United States, but here I really I'm not sure that they still have this kind of education to music and to the tradition of sacred music, because of course I'm sure they will encourage, all the six mass that is celebrated well, but I don't know how much they really care for the music that has to be performed during the Novus Ordo Mass, as it is called. So I think that this is really something terrible, because of course when you are educated in sacred music, when you have studied sacred music all your life, and then you have to talk to priests that they don't know what you are talking about, and they are the ones that decide So it's really frustrating.
I want to remind our listeners that I'm talking to Aurelio Porfiri. He's written a book I really want you to buy and read and give it to your friends. It's entitled When the Harps Went Still, The Tragic Decline of Catholic Sacred Music. That is offered from Sophia Press along with several other of Aurelio's books as well. You write this, Aurelio, you write, one dedicated to sacred music knows that it must guide souls toward the good. When it does not fill this aim, it cannot properly be termed sacred. Now, that's a generality, but what I want to tell our listeners, and I want to congratulate you, you actually explain how it is that sacred music does guide us toward the good, and how the invasion of pop music in our liturgies does not do that. You say that pop music in its own genre has its own artistic beauty, has its own form and function, but when it impacts sacred music to become the dominant association, you use the word association, when a pop music becomes the dominant association in sacred music, then sacred music no longer guides souls toward the good. Did I explain that correctly?
Yes, I mean, there is nothing wrong on pop music or the kind of music that the people listen in their ordinary life. I mean, there are also some nice songs, well done, very, very elaborate, very artistic. The point is that, of course, pop music is not built to lead people to supernatural realities, and especially those supernatural realities that we meet in the liturgy. So the liturgy has its own kind of music. That does not mean, we have to be very careful about this, it does not mean that we have only to sing Gregorian chant or to sing only Renaissance polyphony. There is very beautiful music in every time of church history. Even now, I mentioned before my teacher, Cardinal Domenico Bartolucci, a marvelous composer. There are marvelous composers even nowadays. Another one that I met a few years ago now, unfortunately, is not more with us, is the British Colin Moby. He was the master in Westminster Cathedral, and also another marvelous contemporary composer. So that's not the point to say, oh, we have to sing only that repertoire, but we have to sing repertoire that answer to the characteristics that sacred music has to have. And one presentation of these characteristics we had in a very important document that we mentioned many times in the book that is the Motu Proprio by St. Pius X from November 22, 1903. He says sacred music has to have characteristics. Sacred music has to be holy. Sacred music has to have goodness of form. Sacred music has to be universal. What it means universal? It means that even if I go to a country that is very far from my country and I hear their own sacred music, that should not be something that disturbs me, because I can still recognize that this piece of music maintains the characteristics of true sacred music.
Yes, one point you make about the relationship of pop music to sacred music is that the Renaissance composers, such as Dufay and de la Sude and others, I think even Ockeghem, they used they incorporated popular tunes into their music, but yet somehow they incorporated them and the music remained sacred.
Yes, because I think this is the mistake that a lot of people is doing. Now, when they say, "Oh, but how come that Renaissance composers they use secular tunes for their composition, and you are not scandalized? But if we use pop music, then you have a problem." Of course, this is really a not a good argument. Why is not a good argument? Because the language of secular music in the Renaissance was basically the language of sacred music. Secular music developed from sacred music strictly. So the tunes, like Lombardé or other tunes that the composer used, they were basic modal melodies based on the Gregorian chant modes. So
yes.
There was no difference. Now, if you cannot do this because it's a completely different language.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Gregorian chant. It is the foundation of Catholic sacred music, isn't that correct?
We may not say exactly like this because we have the how to say the building of the repertoire of Gregorian chant around the 8th to 9th century. Before, of course, there was repertoire. Some call it Old Roman chant. And even before, of course, the Christians, they sang something. But unfortunately, we are not sure what melodies they were using. We don't know what melodies the first Christians of the first century they were using, but we know that they sang because there is also a very famous document from Pliny the Younger, a letter to the Emperor Trajan, where he say, "Oh, I know the Christians, they gather together and they sing and hymn to Christ as a God." So we know that they sing something, but of course we don't know what they sing. So Christian music, in a certain way, has a very long history, even before Gregorian chant. But Gregorian chant was certainly a kind of point of culmination, we may say, of Catholic sacred music, and then from Gregorian chant developed other repertoires and give also birth to other marvelous compositions of sacred music.
Well, is that true even of the great monastery of Solesmes? Their
yes.
way of singing Gregorian chant, we don't know if that is authentic or not.
Yes, that is of course always open to debate. But what is sure is that the monastery of Solesmes, through the vision of Dom Prosper Granger, they really did a great work of restoration of the melodies, and so this is only something that we have to praise because that was really a magnificent work of looking for all the manuscripts around Europe and then to collect what they think were the best version. Of course, sometimes this kind of things become like ideologies, and
right.
That is never good. But I think that their work is really praiseworthy, but of course we need to be open also to other ideas, other interpretations, and then have a kind of balanced attitude.
Well, let me ask you this. In terms of trying to actually get change at the parish level, where priests would actually apportion part of their budget to a choir master and some at least semi-professional singers, and seek to do what you suggest and what the church wants, what the church has distinctly said through its documents, and you have all the documents in your book, that it wants a sacred music that is truly sacred and not just homogenized form of the latest pop music. How do we get change, Aurelio?
Yes, I always say, that you don't need a lot really to change. You just need people that is committed to change. So it means a priest, a parish leader that think that change is important, and then so choose for his church a choir master that can start to make the music that is really adapt for the given liturgy that they are celebrating. So indeed, also with one organist and one singer, you can already do a lot if they are good and they are well prepared. You do a lot to raise the level of the music in your church. But of course, the objective would be to have at least a choir, even a small choir of very good singers. Very good does not mean only professional, but that they can perform on a professional level, so that they can read music, they have a nice voice, so they can sing various repertoires. So if this start, and of course, knowing the laws of the church, the laws of the liturgy, because we have not to forget that there is another danger, and the danger is of the people that think that the liturgy is a kind of place where to put the sacred music that we like because we like. No, liturgy, we have to perform the music that is fit for that particular liturgy. So one thing that is very important, for example, is to rediscover the texts that are on the missal. For example, the antiphon for the introit, the antiphon for communion. So the text that the church has decided for every particular liturgy. So the music, the rebirth of sacred music come only when we are able to go deeper in our understanding
Yes.
of the nature, the greatness, and the depth of the liturgy.
Yeah. I am talking with Aurelio Porfiri from Italy. We're talking about his great new book, When the Harps Went Still, very evocative title, The Decline of Sacred Music from Sophia Press. We're going to take a short break and we will be back. Thank you. I I'm back with Aurelio Porfiri, and we're discussing his new book, When the Harps Went Still, The Decline of Catholic Sacred Music, from Sophia Press, a very important book in my opinion. And Aurelio, one thing I said earlier is that you actually make the case as to why the intrusion of pop music is not able to fulfill the role of sacred music in directing the soul toward God in prayer. And one very interesting chapter that you have about sacred music and commercial music, you say this: profane music, especially the more commercial type, naturally aims at soliciting several particular sensations, which in some cases can be of a noble nature, but often are associated with the more immediate instincts which guarantee a more rapid grip on the consumer. And the other point you make there is that profane music is often the product of corporate mentalities who own the recording studios, who are managers of the artists, and who are grinding out music just to fulfill a kind of void, and therefore has no intent on raising the soul at all, but just satisfying certain, as you put it, immediate instincts.
Yes, I mean, pop music is a kind of consumeristic thing. I mean, but that is also understandable. I mean, they want to sell more and more, because if they sell more and more, they make more money. So it's a capitalistic enterprise. So to sell more and more, of course, they use whatever they know that can attract the instinct, even the lower instincts of the people. So I mean, I don't blame them to do like that. I mean, it's their job. They do their job, and that is understandable when we talk about the entertainment industry. But that's not to be the idea that should lead the sacred music in church. So the problem is that these people, if I may say, some of these priests, the church leaders, they say, "Oh no, we want to have in the church the language, the musical language of the young people."
Right.
But first of all, I do not sympathize with this kind of vision, because, as I say, young people often they are in a certain way attracted by this music because it is the only music they hear. So I can tell you that I experience myself that a lot of young people, when they are exposed to good music, to good sacred music, maybe at the beginning they are a little surprised because, of course, they are not used, but then they are the first that appreciate the beauty and the supernaturality that can be said of this kind of music. So I think that also there is another thing that I think is important. For example, in the United States, I think you are from the United States, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, the Apostle Paul said we should put away childish things.
Yes,
and
what I want to say that, like in the United States, when you have this choir that sings kind of pop music, they call it contemporary choir. But I really think that is really misleading, because contemporary does not mean pop music. There is a lot of contemporary music that is not pop, but is also a very good music, very great music. So I think that there are a lot of misconceptions in this regard.
Well, we can also observe, even study the statistics, and see that mass attendance has plummeted and the participation of youth has plummeted even more than older people. So this attempt to use music to quote unquote connect to youth has been a total failure.
Yes, exactly.
Now, is that true in Italy as it is in the United States?
Yes, and I can tell you that a few months ago, in Italy, we had a new book published by a sociologist, and this book is called in Italian, La Messa Finita, in English would be the Mass Descendant. And the person that wrote the book, the sociologist, he said that the decline in attendance he studied in Italy, it was constant. And if, of course, like different social classes or generation, they have different numbers, but the youth is really like almost absent now from church attendance. So certainly this is the category of people that is kind of disappeared. And also one accelerator of this phenomenon is certainly being the COVID. So this was a phenomenon already existing before COVID, but through the pandemic and all the measures, this makes the phenomenon very evident now. So that in churches, sometimes in very important historical churches, parishes, and so you have attendance of 20, 30 people. So that is, we are in Rome. I mean, we are not in a city that, is far from Catholicism. I mean, we are in a certain way in the center of Catholicism, but yeah, also the situation is really grim. I think you say grim, no? That is the word.
Well, you make an interesting observation that whenever the church, the Catholic Church, is marketed, they use the traditional sacred music for the background.
Exactly.
And I would add to that whenever a Catholic church is seen in a film or somebody's walking through, it's always the traditional sacred music too. It's not kumbaya.
You hear the organ, or you hear some Polizio or Gregorian chant. Because these people are smart, they know that if you want to create an immediate association in the few seconds that they are in the church, the best way is to use the music that is done for the church, and not kind of they don't put the people with guitar singing things like that, because they know that that's not the appropriate music for the church. So I think many people understand this. The people doing marketing for advertisement, they understand this. The people doing movies, they understand this. But why church leaders, they don't want to understand this?
Yes, I want to tell our listener again the name of your book. It's When the Harps Went Still, The Decline of Catholic Sacred Music, Sophia. Very important book. In your last chapter called Confronting Failure, you mentioned again the role of clergy. And I want to make a general observation. You tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
I am 75 years old. Okay. I discovered classical music when I was young, when I was high school and college, because it was around me. It was part of my environment. And therefore, I developed an ear for it. And my entire life, I've listened primarily to classical music when it came to sacred music, traditional Catholic sacred music. I've even sung in a schola cantorum. But what I find in the generations below me, younger, is they never developed an ear for beauty in music.
Yeah, but you know, that's exactly the point I was making. They don't develop because the people that should educate them, they don't do that. And before, one of the great educator of youth was the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church, that I want to give you a personal example. I lived worked in Macau, China, for 7 years.
Really?
And I worked in schools, and even if my schools were Catholic schools, but the vast majority of the students were not Catholic. Because, of course, the number of Catholics there is not very high. So I am a choir, a female choir, and maybe there were 14 singers, but 2 were Catholics. The other, they don't have religion at all. So, but I teach them slowly to sing in Latin, to sing Gregorian chant, to sing polyphony. I compose music for them in Latin. Or even in English, because the school was with the English language. But the point is, they slowly become really in love for this kind of music, because they feel the music is so beautiful, so supernatural. And if you allow me another example, during my time in China, I was also visiting conductor in the Shanghai Conservatory of Music, that is one of the best conservatories in China. And of course, you know that when you are in China, you have to be very careful to teach them like sacred music. And so I have to find a way, because for me it was a kind of new situation when I had to teach them Pater Noster, our Father, and they don't have a clue what this was.
Right.
Who was the, so they don't have a clue. So what I try to do is because I cannot do catechism to them, because then I can be in a kind of danger, and that can put in jeopardy all my work there. And so what I say is, when you listen this kind of music, what do you feel? What is your reaction? And I remember one student said to me, "Oh yes, this music is a kind of music that you hear in church." So that really struck me, because I said, you know, the students, they don't have any exposure to religion, to liturgy, to Jesus, but still they can recognize that this kind of music has a quality that is different from other kind of choral music or other kind of music that they can hear. So the point is, what you say is correct. Most of young people, they don't have a clue, but because we should educate them.
Yes.
You know, if we educate them, so they are the one that really, they become the herald of beauty, liturgy, and sacred music.
Aurelio, I want to read a paragraph from your last chapter, because it really is, it moved me, it's powerful, and I'm going to read it out loud here. You write, "To return to good sense, we must hope for a return to the healthy tradition, to listening to the great inheritance that our fathers bequeathed us, not out of nostalgia for the past, that by now no one can remember, but in order to build on solid foundations a future with meaning. We need the courage of the tradition. We need to know it and listen to it, to draw from it the inspiration necessary to build something new. This attitude is countercultural today, and even dangerous in a certain sense. Whoever steps out of the mainstream knows he is moving toward being marginalized. Then you say, better at any rate to run this risk and remain in the truth rather than to be successful in a lie. You know, Aurelio, we have a saying. I'm from Texas originally, and we have a saying, and it goes like this: those are fighting words.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when you are reading these words, that I and the other will be good, so I can find this was even now, because they are really like this. I strongly believe in this, and I think that this is the key for the good change, not to to imagine a past and to take refuge in a past that sometimes is not a real past, but is only something that we build to cope with the present that we don't like. Because the tradition is not the past. Tradition is the eternal. Tradition connects us to the origin. So we have really to be careful not to fall in the trap of a certain traditionalism. And this is a topic that I taught in my other book that you kindly mentioned before on the history of Catholic traditionalism. But we have certainly to cultivate tradition and to deepen our knowledge on the beauty of tradition, because only tradition is the reason of every good and true progress.
One comment you make is probably going to upset some people, that some of the Catholic more popular youth movements have created an entire sort of hymnology of its own, which, in your opinion, is not very helpful. And I'm in a church where one of these hymnologies is actually sung every Sunday, and I just cringe. I just cringe. Especially when they start playing the drums and the guitar on top of it. But these youth movements, Focolare and so forth, what do you find missing there?
You know, this kind of movement are kind of appendix of the 60s movements. So you know that in the 60s, you know, the like hippies, all this kind of new age, this kind of things. You know, the music was a very important part of the culture, not the beat culture. That also was very important in your country, in the United States. You know, Allen Ginsberg and all the other people. So I think that some kind of people that even in Catholic circles, they were in a certain way kind of heads of this kind of movement. So they thought that using a music that was similar can cause or create a sort of blending between this kind of hippie culture and Christianity, because you know that in 1974 there was also the very famous movie, the musical Jesus Christ Superstar. That,
yes.
I have to say, as a musical, it's very well done. I mean, it's a great musical.
I agree.
But of course, it's questionable about the vision that the way they portray Jesus, the way they portray the narration of the gospel. So you know, it's a kind of cultural a movement that leads certain people far from what should be. good and true sense of Catholic liturgy and Catholic civil music.
Yeah, I mean, Jacques Maritain famously said, we must distinguish to unite. And I think that what you've done in this book is to distinguish different genres of music, and not said to any one genre you're inferior. You just said it's different and serves different ends. Whereas traditional sacred music has its own particular and specific end which it should serve.
Yes. Yes, I think like this. I think that we should be able to understand that without being negative on things, but that every genre, every element has its own purpose. So certain music is good for the military, certain music is good for dancing, some other music is good for relaxing, and there is music that is good for praying. So we have to return to the music that is good for praying.
Yeah. I noticed that you, in the last chapter, also raised the question of whether Vatican II erased everything that preceded it. And the answer to that is a resounding no. Why do you think it's true that people identify this invasion of pop music and liturgy as a product of Vatican II?
Yeah, this I'm sure. The people identify the invasion of this kind of music with Vatican II, but indeed, if people read the Constitution, Sacrosanctum Concilium, that is the Constitution about liturgy, they would be very surprised, because this Constitution mandates the use of Latin, the use of Gregorian chant, the use of organ, encourage Schola Cantorum and polyphony. So I think it's very, very difficult to reconcile what we have in our churches with what the Vatican II has said.
Yeah, as you quote Paul VI, we preach in ecumenism and we are increasingly alienated from others. Rather than fill abysses, we are trying to dig them. And so that's analogous to trying to reach out to young people by using their music, but we only find that they don't respond and they don't want to come to masses that remind them of their pop music.
Yeah, because also you think about this. If they go in church, they hear similar music they can hear outside, but only outside they hear music that is much better quality also, because of course it's done with a kind of artistry that in church very rarely you have. So why I have to listen to this in the church? So I can listen much better in my apartment with YouTube, Spotify, or whatever means. So I think that what would be important is that they can be in church and listen to music that helps them to raise their soul to God. That is indeed at the end the real point. They should be at the presence of music that helps them to elevate their soul to God. And if the church is not doing this, it's doing a very great disservice to young people and to all of us in any case, because also we are the mass.
Well, my experience of going to Mass in the United States is I'm absolutely starved for beauty. I am starved. Sometimes I hear good sermons, but I never find that liturgy or the music used in liturgy is uplifting. It doesn't help me to pray. In fact, sometimes it gets in the way of prayer, especially when they start banging the drums to the Agnus Dei, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I find myself laughing inwardly. That how can we do this to our liturgy, Aurelio?
Yeah, but I have to say that if I would be in the presence of things like that, I probably will go out of the church, because I cannot stand, really cannot stand something like that, because for me it's a kind of blasphemous or things like that. But what I want to say is, what is really appalling is that the priests don't understand that doing this is only lead to a major failure. And so, I mean, they already have a failure, but it looks like they don't want to accept it. So
yes.
It's like when someone is sick, they give them medicine, and the person becomes more and more sick. So they say, oh, give more of this medicine. And the person becomes more and more sick. So how long do you want to wait before you change therapy?
Yeah, we're coming to the end of our time together, and I want to remind our listeners that your name is Aurelio Porfiri, and your book is When the Harps Went Still, The Decline of Catholic Sacred Music. And very quickly, do you have any plans on lecturing in the United States about this book?
I don't know. If I will be invited, that may be. But if there is someone that is interested to organize, of course I can consider.
Let me see what I can do about that, okay?
Okay.
So, Aurelio Porfiri, thank you so much for being with us on Church and Culture today.
Oh, thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure.
Well, you've written an absolutely brilliant and important book, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And to all of you who are listening, we're going to have another great guest after a short break.